What's going on, comic fam? It is your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined for another comic creator interview, and I've got Stephen Prince right here, and we are talking comics. So welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I got introduced to you. I saw some of your comics. I had Rylan Grant, we were just talking about. He was on one of my first interviews, and he mentioned this book, and he's like, do you like monster books? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, what about a Matador? Oh, what? I was like, I knew I had to check out this. And so I want to talk to you about the comic a little bit and stuff like that. And I know you got a Kickstarter coming up here real soon. Depends on when you watch this video or listen to the stream. It might be live at that moment. So we'll definitely talk about that. One of the first things I always ask all my guests, so when they kind of come on, I love to just know what got you into creating comics.
Wow. It's something I've done for as long as I can remember. When I was a little kid, I used to staple together. When I would go to my dad's office sometimes, I would bring comics with me, and I'd photocopy them, and I'd staple them, and I'd give them out to friends, you know? And I've always drawn because it was kind of like, I went to a religious school growing up.
Okay.
And they kind of like tried to kind of pray the creativity out of me. I was always doing like little comic strips and whatever, so it's something that I've always done and has like evolved over time. In college, I did like little zines with like comic strips, and after college, I started doing actual like comics and stuff like that. And a few years ago, I lost my job and basically had nothing to do. So I figured, well, you know, what better time to start making comics? So I started making a comic strip called Unemployment, about an unemployed ant. And everything started from there. And I wasn't like, so I used to write and draw everything. And with Unemployment, I was sort of learning how to draw.
Okay.
And then I did this 200-page science fiction graphic novel called Third, where I was learning how to draw still. And then I kind of felt, I had Monster Matador sitting around for a while. And I just, at that point, I figured, well, maybe I'm ready to sort of draw it. And I wound up doing kind of like 12 issues of that, writing and drawing it. It's sort of a precursor to the book that is out now. And it's just sort of, it was me kind of feeling out the character, finding a rhythm, finding a story. And the plan was always to kind of do that and then to really kind of like get it out to the public, which brings us to the book that I kickstarted a few months ago, Tango, the Matadors.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So because I hopped in on your last Kickstarter. That's kind of where I got exposed to it. And I've gotten to read some of the original issues that kind of, like you said, were a precursor to this Kickstarter that you just did a couple months ago, this one that you're doing now. So where did this idea then for Monster Matador, give people kind of like the precursor, I guess, of the elevator pitch here of where it came about, what it's about, you know, the first story before we get into the more recent stuff.
So it kind of, the concept itself, I'm a big fan of Peter Sellers.
Okay.
There's a movie he did, it's not as well known as some of his famous ones. It's called The Bobo. And he plays Juan Bautista. It's the greatest singing matador in all of Spain. And just the way he played it, you know, like, you know, because matadors, they've got like a style and the way they stand and everything is, you know, and it's just like, so since then I've been kind of like just obsessed with the whole like iconography of matadors. And as a writing exercise one day, I was just trying to come up with a character, and the name just popped into my head, you know, Monster Matador. It just had a ring to it. And I just started developing it from there, and trying to think of what kind of world he would be in. And of course, if there's monsters, it's a post-apocalyptic sort of world. And one thing I did also was I gave him a daughter. So his daughter he's basically fighting the monsters. His motivation is to fight the monsters to make a better future for his daughter. So, and in the original, in the ones that I did, it sort of tells his story about how he lost his wife the night the monsters attacked. And then he travels around from Mexico to the United States, sort of fighting monsters and building this reputation as the Monster Matador. And the book that I kickstarted is really kind of like the beginning of the Monster Matador. So this is when he is officially, you know, the Monster Matador. He's got the reputation of fighting monsters. And one of the things I did in Tango the Matadors is when you first meet him, you meet him kind of in media res, in the middle of the action. And he's being carried into the book by this giant monster, which we call the Volagante. It's basically a giant fly with thousands of little flies. And it drops the Matador into the action, which is kind of a metaphor kind of for basically what we're doing to the reader is we're kind of introducing you into the book and we're just kind of throwing you in there, right, you know, straight into the action. And then we kind of, one of the reasons why I called it Tango the Matadors and is because there's another Matador who's been inspired by the Monster Matador, who also wants to fight monsters. And rather than telling the reader, you know, his story and what it's all about, it's nice to see how he contrasts against this other Matador. So you can learn about him and his personality and everything through his actions and how they mirror the other Matador.
Yeah,
So,
it's such a cool world. So like I said, I hopped in on this last Kickstarter, so this was the issue 1 that you were talking about, and it is really, it is true. I had no background. I knew the idea of, you know, as a Matador who fought monsters, which if that doesn't sell you on a book anyways, gang, why are you watching this podcast? Like, that just is a great concept. It's like all the monsters that you have from like the Godzilla movies, and instead of Godzilla fighting them, it's a Matador, which is fantastic. Yeah. But it was easy to catch in. You knew what was going on. You knew kind of, it brought you into the action right away. But you didn't feel like, oh, I really had to read the previous, was it 12 issues that you put out? Yeah, 12 issues to get that kind of feel. Like, you got some notes of why he's doing it, like you said, like, you know, for his daughter. And, you know, there's, you know, you notice about the loss of his wife, that right off, like, those things introduce you so you don't feel left out. And I will say, it was brilliant. That title page is fantastic. How you guys have it then in like the landscape shot, like it is a movie opening title package. I'm sure that's what you guys were going for, like through and through, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, that was Fabio Alves is the artist, and he's drawn. He's collaborated with Ryland Grant. He drew Banjax, which he just got nominated for a Ringo Award for Best Cover Artist. And the book picked up a bunch of awards. And he also did The Jump with Ryland. And Fabio was kind of having some downtime, and that's how, and I was looking for an artist, and that's how I got hooked up with him. And that was the first page that Fabio drew. He nailed it. I didn't even try him out or anything because I'm friends with Ryland, so I knew Fabio's work, and I'd read Banjax, and I just wanted to get the ball rolling. I was just like, go ahead, just draw the page, and he just nailed it, you know. And his stuff is just getting better and better. So
it's fantastic. And I'm biased. For those of you that follow my stuff, he drew me into The Jump, so I'm in a
that's
so like
cool.
I'm biased. I think his art's great. So when you get him in, so how was it? Because I know like you did the illustration, you did the writing for the first series. How was it to let someone else kind of in your playground with like your real like doing the art? Because I know you probably had an idea of what you wanted things to look like, and then you're like, all right, here, I'm going to give someone else something to do.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Part of the reason why I wanted to shift it to someone else is because I've got 2 little kids at home, and I just don't have the time to do it. I was getting really frustrated because the art wasn't coming out to what I wanted it to. I was doing pages literally. I would blue line a page, which is basically penciling a page in blue line in like an hour, 2 hours. and then penciling the page in like an hour or 2 hours. So it was like I just wasn't really able to spend the time that I wanted to on it. And but to me, the coolest thing, I mean, seeing Fabio's interpretation of the character is, to me, as a creator, it's awesome. And he loves the character, and it's awesome to see someone else have that kind of excitement about it. You know, also Tony Donnelly did a cover for me, Kyle Roberts. I've had a couple other artists do their versions of the character, and it's, to me, it's the coolest thing as a creator to see someone else bring a character of mine to life, you know. And I'd much rather Fabio than draw it than me. So.
Well, and that's kind of like you said, like if that was, you were talking, that title page kind of was like the first page you sent. Man, it had to be a cool experience when you had that like digital copy, whatever, in your hand. Like, this is, wow, this gotta be cool, because it's a sweet picture.
Yeah, and if you look at, what's interesting too is that if you look at the way I draw the Matador, I have a little more of a cartoony style. But if you look at the way I draw it and you look at the way Fabio draws it, like Fabio nailed the look. You know what I mean? Like, you can look at both and you can see that they're the same people. But when I saw Fabio's, that's like what I see in my head. You know what I mean? Like, that was just like, oh wow, that is the Matador. That's the guy that I'm writing. It's made it a lot easier to write too, because you just have that image right there. You know?
So I was gonna ask, does that change kind of what you write a little bit sometimes, of like knowing what his image of who your character is that you've created? Like, does that kind of shift like your storyline a little bit of like, ooh, I know what he can bring to the table art wise of something, I want to write this in particular because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. In that first series, the stories start out really simple because really I didn't, you know, because of where I was at drawing wise, you know, there were things that I could or couldn't do. And as it moved on, the stories become more complex because I got better at doing it. With Fabio, so Tango the Matadors was written before I knew Fabio was going to draw it. But as we've been doing it, he's been adding things to it. So it's been a much looser collaboration. And in the follow-up that we're doing, I wrote it specifically for him. So he loves horror. So it's got kind of a horror tinge to it. And there's I mean, you see it in the first issue, there's a subplot with some zombies in South Africa. So you could see where that's kind of going. It's going to be Predator meets zombies. So.
Awesome. Oh man, that's awesome. So right now, you're currently, this story arc that you're writing is a three issue story arc. Is that correct?
Yeah, 3 issues. Yeah.
Okay. And so the last one was just on Kickstarter. This second issue now is on Kickstarter. And so talk about that then. Talk about the second issue a little bit more.
So the second issue, so in the first issue, which is also going to be available on the Kickstarter, okay. Where it basically takes place in Guatemala, and the Matador is helping these people in Guatemala fight this giant monster and her thousands of like children that have been terrorizing them for years. And in the second issue, basically the Matador goes off to the Volagante, to the big monster's lair to go fight it. The townspeople are fighting off her children, and they're getting killed. And then one of the townspeople is off on a side quest to get help for the townspeople. So there's these 3 stories that are kind of happening all at once. And there's a killer cliffhanger at the end of it, which
yeah, you were so gracious enough to send me something, and I was like, the preview this before, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about because I don't want to give.
No, absolutely.
I don't want to give the twist away, but it's definitely a cliffhanger where you'll definitely want to see what happened in issue 3.
So all these, where do you get the idea then for these monsters? Because like there are so many different ones. Like, you know, are these like monsters that have already been kind of created that are you know, the names that you have with them, or like where does that part come into?
I try to, so I try to come up with something that's sort of specific to maybe the region that it's taking place. Or so in Guatemala, and I'm remembering this probably incorrectly, but they've got these big black flies there or something like that.
Oh.
So it came from that. So I try to find something within the culture or the society, whatever that is taking place, that where the monsters are based on.
That's cool, because like it's interesting, like you said, of just to see how it kind of develops into this world. And obviously if people hop in now, they can do some backtracking to get more exposure to the world. And it sounds like you have just more stories in your head for beyond.
Yeah, so it's I have basically what I call like the focused arc, which is to be probably which will tell like the whole story of the Matador. And for people worried about issues 1 through 12, we're actually down the line. We're actually going to retell those issues as a book, as a graphic novel,
Oh, nice.
as a mini graphic novella that'll be part of the series. So my idea is I love doing single issues, but with Kickstarter, it's so much, and really for the reader, it's like you're waiting 3 months. I mean, I have the book. So the good news is I have the book done. So like I did on the first one, the Kickstarter ended, the funds transfer in 2 weeks. It goes straight to the printer, and a month later, I get the books out and ship it to you. But I'd like to, after these, move to like. So the plan is to move to like mini graphic novels. Okay. So probably around 64 pages each. And rather than running like 3 or 4 Kickstarters a year, it's basically will be like 1 or 2 at most, Yeah. And that way you'll get like the complete story in each book.
Nice.
So, and I think, and that will help also cut costs down for the backers. So,
right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm always kind of looking for ways, because I mean, I appreciate it so much that people actually, it still blows my mind. I mean, I do it, but it still blows my mind that people are so supportive of independent creators, especially on that platform. So I'm always looking for ways. Like I did little sketches for everyone who backed the first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So
sweet. I have mine, and that's awesome.
You got it. Yeah.
So.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm always looking for like a little thing just to kind of give back a little bit and show my appreciation for it. But yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like to do like 10 little graphic novellas,
Yeah. No, that's
cool. And then, so for me, like the Matador story, it's a little different than, it's sort of like, it's very focused on the Matador and him fighting monsters. Right. And what you'll see is as the Matador keeps fighting them and going to different places, we'll see like the bigger story of the world. And we'll start to find out maybe where the monsters came from, how other countries and people are fighting the monsters and things like that. But one thing for me is that like the focus is really just on the Matador and the story about him kind of raising his daughter. And we've got some really fun things planned for that.
That's so cool. So if someone's watching this or listening on either iTunes or Spotify or whatever to this podcast, if they're not sold on Monster Matador already, what are some perks that you guys are offering in this campaign? Like, because I know you guys offered a lot of really cool campaign rewards. What are some like ones that you want to highlight that I think might be interesting to hear?
So Tony Donnelly, who's doing the Kickstarter exclusive cover, is actually doing some sketch cards for me. We've got prints that we're going to be giving away with the comics, and we've got some surprises. Also, every comic will come with a trading card. This time, I'm hoping to do another little sketch for everyone. I got started on that. And we've got, this is something, I did it for myself, but I had it printed up. I don't know how well you guys can see it. Let me take it out. This is a 9x12, and this is a glow in the dark 3-color screen print. So you could see the Volgante over it.
Yeah.
And that'll glow in the dark. And it's a high quality print. It's printed by, if you're a fan of movie prints and things like that, it's printed by Nakatomi.
Okay.
They do a lot of concert posters, a lot of movie posters like that. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, I really want one of these for me.
So you're like, so you create some of your campaign rewards of like, hey, I want this. So if other people want it, they have a chance to too.
Could I make it work? I don't know. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So and then we've got Tony's cover is going to be one of the perks in a really big package with basically everything but the kitchen sink. So yeah, we also have a variant cover by artist Puis Calzada, who is an artist for Fangoria magazine.
Oh wow, that's cool. Yeah, so sounds like a lot to hop on. So just for whenever people aren't listening, we'll have links and descriptions in this below, but when is the Kickstarter for issue 2 dropping?
It's September 29th. So that's Tuesday, September 29th. And it'll probably run till about October 25th or 26th. So the Ringo Awards are October 24th. And Fabio is nominated for Best Cover Artist. So I'm hoping he wins.
I
he deserves it.
He's super talented. So that's so cool. So yeah, if you're watching this, definitely check out the Kickstarter and hop on that sucker early. I know that's a huge thing for creators is if you're thinking about it, just hop on that early, start spreading the word because it's good content. I'm telling you, you're not going to be disappointed if you're even remotely intrigued by this idea because it's been great so far.
We have early bird specials, which if you're not familiar with Kickstarter, basically we discount the books for the first, I think, 3 days. I set it for. So yeah.
Nice.
Please.
Yeah, so absolutely hop on that early, get the early bird pricing. You're not going to want to miss out. Before we wrap up, I just want to is there anything else that you're kind of, working on in the midst, or are you just focusing right now on Monster Matador or anything else you want to share?
So I've got Monster Matador. Fabio and I have a short story in an anthology that's coming to Kickstarter at the end of October. It's called the Nightmare Theater Anthology. And there's going to be a bunch of amazing talent in there. David Pepos, who does Spencer and Locke, and he just did the Oz on Kickstarter.
Yep.
Going to the Chapel, David Avalone, who writes Betty Page and Elvira. Carla Nappi, who does Duplicant. Dave Schrader, who does Baby Badass. Don Wynn, who does Pablo the Gorilla. Clay Adams, who's done a bunch on Kickstarter. There's a ton of talent in that book. So that'll be at the end of October. And then Fabio and I are working on a horror concept.
Nice.
So Fabio has this concept that I guess he did this to Ryland, where he kind of he sent me this like folder of just images. And I'm like, what do you want me? I'm like, these are cool. What do you want me to do with it, Fabio? And he's like, oh, just let it sit in your head. So basically, Ryland, I think Ryland kind of came up with the jump from that, which is, if you haven't checked that out, it was a Kickstarter book, and he's going to do another one in January, I think. And it's all about what's called astral projection. It's a great book. So Fabio then sent me that thing, and it's tricky. So Fabio doesn't speak English. He's in Brazil. He speaks Portuguese. So everything he does runs through a translator, and I don't speak Portuguese. So it's kind of so sometimes it's tricky communicating because the translator doesn't always it doesn't always capture the meaning of it.
Right.
So for a couple of weeks, I was trying to figure out, because we were going back and forth. I was trying to figure out what exactly like he was looking for and whatever. So we came up. So I came up with something that it's sort of like a horror anthology.
Okay.
And I liken it to kind of the X-Files, where there's an overall mythology, and then there's the kind of what they had, like the Monster of the Week episodes.
Yeah.
So we'll be telling these little horror stories that kind of, turn into a bigger horror thing. So that'll hopefully launch sometime next year.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, Stephen, thank you again so much for just taking a little bit of time to talk to me. Where can people find you and support you and what you do?
Cool. You can find me on Facebook, Monster Matador, Instagram, Monster Matador, Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. It's @BStephenPrince, or you can follow Monster Matador and monstermatador.com.
So just remember Monster Matador.
Just remember Monster Matador. You're bound to find something. So
nice. So well, again, all the links to your information will be in this video, as well as the Kickstarter. So make sure you guys hop on that Kickstarter. And again, you're not going to be disappointed. So with that being said, hopefully you can find some time this week, gang, to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.